All right, welcome back to Daily Update, my 1000 Days Challenge. This is day 502, so let's get things started. All right, so first and foremost, going in terms of the US market itself, okay, going in terms of balance, why it remains the same, but I've been taking some small losses here and there for my experimental trades. What I mentioned, I've been recently trying to explore into scalping in a sense, or doing day trading in that sense. So that's a new area I'm exploring into. And the thing is, previously when I used experimental trade setup, the idea was to extrapolate on the longer time frame that I use on a 4-hour chart or shorter time frame. But herein lies the fact that, like what I mentioned, what I've learned over the past 500 days is that as you start to scale down lower into the lower time frame itself, you actually face a problem, which is in terms of the slippages itself, both in terms of entry, exit, and also in terms of the proportion of fees taking into account of your profit, especially when the percentage of the fees are in terms of the same percentage, but your profit in terms of the move, the swing is technically shorter, even though the risk to reward remains the same. So this eats into a lot of the edge that you actually have with the same strategy. So right now I'm trying to go into scalping, and scalping relies on a very, I would say, a slightly different kind of methodology and approach, in the sense that right now I'm actually scanning for more volatile coins or volatile tokens to actually trade with. On the other hand, for my main trading account setup, I actually go for a more direct approach, meaning to say I actually go for very fixed tokens, very fixed, more or less systematic approach in that sense. Well, this is also a systematic approach, but using on a wider scale of tokens in that sense. So I'll talk more about it maybe later with more experience and more practice. So I would say that for this 1 month, which means from the day 500 I've started to probably around 530-ish or 550 for the 50 days, I'm going to test trial this scalping kind of approach. I'll just be playing along with say $10 position here and there, and then just see how things goes. So yeah, there's something to bear in mind. Be updating this as well. All right. Otherwise, if you look in terms of the US market itself, generally the bullish momentum remains on the daily chart, but bearing in mind that so I'll later talk more about that. So, but bearing in mind that even though we actually dropped down yesterday, I don't see it as negatively bearish. In fact, like what I mentioned, I do want it to consolidate here, even if it's until January or March next year itself. In fact, if it has a very huge consolidation channel, that will be actually a great move, and then a breakout also be a very much more decisive move. In that sense, because it forms a much stronger base. So if we do come and revisit it, in fact, you'll be much more strong in that sense. So okay, see over here, we go over here, we retrace, we pull back, and then you see a much nicer support over here. Whereas previously, if you see over here, there wasn't much of a retracement. You see a weak support, and then we actually break below. So yeah, the more we consolidate over here, something we want like this, we drop, we can also continue. So because something like this, but the longer the time frame is extended onwards, then it will be a more likely to have a more stronger base. Basically, it's like you trying to stand on the 2 feet, being closer or being more apart in that sense. Being more apart give you more stability for you to hold up a bigger load in that sense. All right, and same thing for Nasdaq. So retracement wise, I do see it as being healthy, still finding support at 50 simple moving average for the daily chart. But of course, like what I say, if you are new to the position, you could perhaps add. But for me, I have sufficient risk in it, so I'm just staying put. So for ASHR, like what I mentioned in US, China market itself, it looks to be really strong. Broke above, stay above there for more than 3 days already. So if we do find some sort of retest over here, it'll be a really good sign for continuation towards the upside. That's one. So for KREP itself, the opposite holds true in the sense that we're actually finding resistance over here. So it's actually reverse of what's happening for AHHR. Definitely looks to be bearish, so we could perhaps still revisit this $35 region itself for very nice, clear, so-called potential capitulation before we actually continue towards the upside. Because like what I mentioned, when it comes to shorting, you always have a max profit of 100% drop. So that is where you always come from. So that's why when you short, you have unlimited loss, you have potential of unlimited loss, but you have a max up your gain in the sense of at the best case scenario, you just be 100% drop. All right, and finally for Bitcoin itself, so tentatively things definitely looks to be bearish, especially if you look in terms of the 4-hourly chart itself. So the daily chart itself, similarly, we do see a decrease in terms of momentum wise. The potential switch could take place, something like this, which would be a very good sign. This is actually coming from below. So similarly, a good sign that we have a reduced momentum. Could have still one more false breakout to push people to go down. But for me, I'll be willing to put a sell stop order here on a 4-hour chart, simply because we have been consolidating here for a very long time. If we do have a strong swing, we could potentially retest even the 36K region itself. But of course, I'll put a buy limit over here near the 40K mark, because potentially can be strong buying pressure over there. And in fact, you still give me a potential 1:1.5 risk to reward setup. So that's a sell stop order that I'll be placing later today. Yep, otherwise that's more or less about it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to provide your comments below. Yeah, I mentioned the trade over here, so you can read it, pause and take a read over here. Otherwise, that's more or less about it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to provide your comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.